How many games are going to win this fall?
That is a big question for the Kansas State Wildcats, coming off what I think has to be looked at as a disappointing season. They enter last year trying to play for the Big 12 title. Avery Johnson, as we discussed in the Heisman draft, coming in, expecting to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country or in that conversation. He was not. Kansas State was not. They lost games they shouldn't have lost. They just had some real head-scratching performances, and it really started early when they went on the road to BYU and just kind of let that game slip away. And we talked about Provo at night and all those, mystical things that seem to happen when BYU's playing under the lights. But I think that for Kansas State, there was a consistency that was lacking. And so now I think they come in a little bit maybe under the radar, but the odds makers give them one of the highest win totals in the conference, over under of 8.5. And I love this one, Danny, because we got minus 110 each way. It's just up to us to go and figure it out. How are you looking at Kansas State and the 2025 season?
So I'm bullish on Kansas State. I think they go over this win total. I think they could be playing in the Big 12 championship game, and I think they could win it. Now, what I am banking on is that the expectations last year with Avery Johnson were way too high, right? In the whole narrative of Chris Kleiman sending Will Howard off to Ohio State because he's going to be better, that was a risky move that they had to make. And, Will Howard goes and wins the national championship. But I think with those expectations, I think Avery Johnson played like he had to carry the team on his back. And you mentioned that BYU game. Awful game for him. 2 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. The other kind of surprising losses they had, Houston, he had 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Against Arizona State, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So he had this 3-game skid that cost him every one. And turnovers are so valuable in young quarterbacks. That's why I'm very hesitant to pick conference championship winners, national championship winners with first-year starting quarterbacks, because as rough as it was, it's kind of normal, especially in a league like the Big 12. The one thing, you mentioned it already, they have been harping all offseason and all spring to Avery Johnson about getting more consistent. You don't have to make the hero play. You don't have to make every throw. It's okay to take a sack. And that's a lesson that young quarterbacks have to learn. I think they clean up some of his mistakes. I had them, I don't want to say well over, but I do have them over the 8.5. I had them when I went through and was drawing it up, I went through 10-2 and I was like, whoa. Enthusiasm. But I do have them getting to the Big 12 championship game. So I've got Kansas State at 10-2. Matt Wells also taking over as offensive coordinator. He was pass game coordinator. I think that opens things up. I think Avery Johnson's going to play cleaner. I'm a big believer in Chris Kleiman. I think the defense is going to be better too. So I'm going to go ahead and say over that 8.5.
We like Matt Wells, right?
Yeah. That's covered him back at Utah State. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Matt Wells. I think he got a raw deal at Texas Tech. I think he's a really good football coach.
Oh, let's go. November 1st, Matt Wells, Texas Tech revenge game, cooking it up.
I did have a W on that one too.
Preseason lock. I say this with a lot of these teams that are very good, but especially in a conference like this. Hey, look, 0 certified losses. There are challenging spots, but there is not a game where I think that Kansas State is going to be outclassed. However, I also gave them 6 toss-ups. So, that's what we're talking about. Floor 6-6, ceiling is 11-1 or something along those lines. When I'm going through and I'm splitting the difference, I think it is good that Texas Tech game is going to be in Manhattan. Obviously, the Iowa State game is going to be out in Ireland. TCU game is going to be at home. Those difficult road trips, I think the ones that stand out clearly at Utah, but then also at Baylor. You come back from Ireland, I think they start stacking wins. They go into that. If they win in Ireland, they might probably 5-0 going into that spot. That could get a little bit tricky going to Waco to play a very, very good Baylor team. Ultimately, I landed at 9-3. I'm with you. I think that this is over 8.5. And I think that, having to pick a Big 12 title matchup, I think that Kansas State's got to be on the short list of teams that you expect to be there. So 4-1, 5-0 going into the Baylor game, and then kind of egg in a spoon, make sure you don't slip up against a Colorado, Oklahoma State, coming in. So I am also on the over for Kansas State.